Haunted dolls are considered one of the most important inspiring elements of international horror films, as these films were based on legends and tales about haunted dolls. But the impact of these dolls was not limited to drama only, but there are victims and stories of a number of dolls whose owners claim that they cause a curse, or that they are haunted, or it affects whoever owns it. I present to you stories of a number of dolls whose owners claim to be haunted, and some of the incidents that occurred because of those dolls, as well as the story of the terrifying doll displayed at public auction. In the following lines, no one would expect that a small piece of fur stuffed with fiber, inhabited by a demonic spirit, might harm someone at night, sometimes turning into a brutal and bloody killing machine and a source of fear and mystery. A doll at auction. Speaks from its stomach. An auction announced the sale of a terrifying ventriloquist doll, which has a picture of it with its original owner dating back to the 20th century. It was among a huge group of dolls that were offered for sale at auction. The doll was elegant in her clothes, as she wore an ornate shirt and tie, a freckled face, and bright red lips. She wore an elegant shirt and tie, and it is believed that her history dates back to the 1920s. She is among more than 20 dolls collected by Abigail Winfield, 61 years old, from Barnstaple, Devon. The doll is with its original owner. This doll is among the dolls owned by Mrs. Winfield and her husband Sean, who decided to sell a group of these dolls. Because they didn't have space to display them, she started collecting dolls as an adult in the late 1980s after getting one as a child. Miss Winfield said that many people hate these dolls because they look scary and look like real people. She said that she loves their faces and the way they move and the fact that you can make them talk. She added, "I love the fact that they are miniature humans." The doll is expected to sell for $8,000 at the end of this month, when it is sold at Charterhouse Auctioneers and Valuers in Sherborne, Dorset. Haunted doll incidents. It is strange that incidents related to the dolls were actually linked, as they behaved as if an evil spirit was inhabiting them or a supernatural force was moving them. Many of the dolls received remarkable attention because of the strangeness that surrounded them, and people did not find a logical explanation for them. Many are the dolls that people believed were inhabited by spirits or jinn. There are many horror and mystery stories in which the hero was a small doll, and they were fertile ground for films and novels that were inspired by the horror that extends for hundreds of years in popular stories around the world about terrifying and haunted dolls. Stories of the most famous haunted dolls, Charles Lee Ray, or her short name is Chucky, is a doll that kills everything that confronts it to achieve what it wants. It tries, through magic, to possess a human soul. The story of the doll is that it was previously a dangerous murderer, but in the end, it was killed by the police, so he tries to return to human form in order to take revenge on the policeman who killed him, but he is shocked that he cannot return to human form except by killing the first person he sees, who is in the form of a doll, and this person is a boy, no more than 7 years old, named Andy. The story of the Chucky doll was turned into a cinematic film, which began with his first appearance in the movie Child's Play in 1988. The doll was inhabited by an evil spirit, and was the property of one of the dangerous killers, constantly trying to move into the human body for the purpose of revenge. After that, the film industry continued to produce a series of horror films called Chucky the Horror Doll. Robot Doll. The beginning of the story of the doll. Robert goes back to the year 1904 in Florida, where there was a couple who lived in a luxurious house on the island of Key West, and they had a child named Robert Eugenie. The story says that the family was using an old nanny from the Bahamas to take care of their child, but when the mother decided to fire that maid, she was known to do strange things like black magic rituals, and she made a doll and gave it to the child, Robert, and named it after him. This doll was a source of confusion for the child's parents. They were hearing the voice of a second person talking to their child in his room. When the child was asked, he was pointing to the doll. After a while, the sounds of it became louder, until it sounded like a fight was taking place. The child then claimed that the doll wanted to attack him, and that she was the one who started the fight, and it was not her. These Western incidents were the last thing the couple and the servants noticed. Rather, the matter went beyond their home, and the neighbors began talking about a doll wandering around their homes and in the garden of Robert's family home, which forced the family to differentiate between the doll and the child.
as they placed the doll in a place out of sight and prevented anyone from approaching it, or opened the door in any case. This continued for a long time, and even after the child grew up, got married, and had a family and children, no one dared to open the attic or approach it, and it remained closed. Robert, the owner of the house, died in 1972 without knowing what happened to his doll, which his parents had locked away since his childhood.
Shortly after the death of the owner of the house was sold without informing the new owner of the story, and the attic was closed. He opened the attic and found Robert the doll sitting on a chair next to the window, as if looking through the window inward. What is strange is that he claimed that the doll was clean, and no dust had accumulated on it, and its clothes were also new. The new owner's daughter immediately took it when she was 10 years old, and only a few days later she began complaining about the doll's attempts to vandalize her room and assault her, which prompted the family to let go of her. Eventually, Robert the doll settled in one of the American museums, and it is not known whether the new owners of Robert's house were the ones who gave it to the museum or another person who collects historical and strange dolls. After a period of this doll's presence in the museum, its guards began to complain about strange movements and sounds. It issued from it, which made the museum administration research its history, and when it was concluded that it might be haunted or enchanted, it was placed in a tightly closed glass box, and to this day it is still in that box, and any visitor can take pictures of it, as there are thousands of pictures and dozens of recorded films of it spread on the internet. Donna felt pity for the little girl's soul and decided to keep the doll to become her friend. But she did not know that she was opening a portal to another world, where she welcomed a demonic entity into her home. The two girls had a friend named Lou, who hated that doll and felt a strange feeling whenever he saw it and wanted to get rid of it. One day, while he was sleeping on the sofa, he felt a fist wrapped around his neck and wanted to strangle him. He stood up in panic to see the doll, Annabelle, standing next to the sofa, staring at him with anger and ferocity. The movie Annabelle, which is based on the witchcraft movie The Conjuring, is based on a true story. The events of the movie revolve around a man and his wife who decide to find a special gift for his pregnant wife, which is a rare old bride wearing a bright white dress. But his wife's attraction to this bride did not last long. On a terrible night, their house was occupied by a group of Satanists who violently assaulted them. It is not the last thing these people do, where they conjure one of the invincible evil spirits, Annabelle. This film is based on a true story that sparked controversy. The haunted dolls appear to be real. The Annabelle doll was possessed by an evil spirit, and it is believed that she still is to this day. It is now located in the Lorraine Warren Museum of the Occult in Connecticut, where they keep it in a glass box, and the museum supervisors and visitors hear the voices. They also notice her terrifying movements. Peggy the doll. The Peggy doll belonged to its owner, Harris, 38 years old, known to be a spirit expert. He kept it for 3 years, beginning in 2017, after a woman who had previously bought it asked for help. During this period, many strange events occurred, as Harris would sometimes hear unexplained footsteps at night, see shadows in the hallway, and lights flickering without explanation, all of which are classic signs of being haunted by a ghost. He pointed out that people claimed that just by looking at her picture, they felt dizzy, nauseous, chest pains, and panic attacks, and what was even stranger was that when the dogs saw her, they barked hysterically whenever they saw the doll placed on the television set. The author of that incident was paranormal investigator Danny Muss in 2019, where he photographed a frightening doll named Grace, who he claimed threatened him with physical harm, he said. He said that he believed that inside, it was the spirit of a witch from the 17th century, confirming that the doll told him that it wanted to burn his eyes. Doll Annie. A psychic named Matt Tillett felt terrified when fresh water started coming out of the cheeks of a toy called Annie, while he was trying to communicate with spirits from the other world. He noted that he heard sounds of children screaming and running, and the voice of an old cobbler, and then the doll started crying for no reason with real tears.